Welcome to the Voices of Young People podcast, brought to you by Springtide Research Institute. In each episode, we hear directly from young people as they respond to our research and share about the issues impacting their lives. As sociologists and researchers, we see a new story unfolding for young people, one that moves beyond traditional institutional boundaries and requires careful attention to the inner and outer lives of emerging generations. At the intersection of being and becoming, it's the voices of young people.
Hello, and welcome back to Season 8 of the Voices of Young People podcast. I'm your host, Marte Aboagye. I'm the head of community engagement at Springtide, and this is our 6th and final conversation in Season 8. We're so excited to have 2 more young people. These are both young professionals in our Springtide Ambassadors program, sharing more about the sacred, what they define the sacred as, where they notice it, and bringing to life a specific sacred experience they've each had. We have all of these stories, all of these conversations in our Season 8 of the podcast because we want to bring the findings from the State of Religion and Young People 2023 to life in ways that just goes beyond the data. We want you to have fresh accounts from all different voices, all different young people spread throughout the country, sharing how they perceive the sacred in their own life. So we have a few questions to get us started. But before that, I would love to have each of our guests introduce themselves. I'll have Gabrielle go first.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle. I am 24 years old. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Los Angeles, California. I'm originally from the San Francisco Bay Area in Northern California. I'm currently a graduate student studying pastoral theology at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. I also work at the university, and I graduated with my bachelor's in music from LMU as well in 2021. I'm born and raised Catholic. My mom worked at a parish when I was growing up. My family was always involved, and I carried that faith with me into college. And obviously it informs my graduate studies now. I am Filipino American. My mom came to the US when she was 13. My dad was born in Sacramento, so I'm full Filipino. Outside of work and school, I've recently taken up puzzling, and I've very much enjoyed that. I really love reading, and I blend my loves of faith and music as a music minister at our Sunday liturgies on LMU's campus.
Wonderful. What a great, robust introduction. You touched so much of just who you are, what you're studying, what your background is. Tell me more about puzzling, though. Like, when you say puzzling, is this like, I don't know what you mean. Is this a game on your phone, or is this like a physical puzzle on a table?
Literally just puzzles.
Okay. I was like, I couldn't tell if like puzzling was like,
the new thing.
Sudoku or like something like that. But puzzles, like jigsaw puzzles we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's great. So, but it's a new thing for you.
It is definitely a new thing. It started when my boyfriend and I visited his grandparents in Washington a couple years ago, and his grandfather always has multiple puzzles going at one time. Like, he has multiple trays. He's very methodical about it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we did it. We started with a Scenes from Jane Austen puzzle from one of our local bookstores. I love Pride and Prejudice, Emma, Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, nice.
So that was like a good gateway.
Yeah.
I mentioned I like reading. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So do you like shellac them when you're done, or you break it apart?
So there was one that was on my coffee table for so long that when we tried to take it apart, it just wouldn't. So now it's like our permanent coffee table cover.
Put glue on that thing.
Like, we picked it up and it was just like a complete rectangle.
That's funny. What
so I guess no, we don't need to.
Yeah.
It was a bookstore scene.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Okay, so yeah, you're combining your literary love with puzzling for some of these.
I'm all about the blending.
Yes, seriously. Well, We're so excited to have you in this conversation. Let's hear from Viva now.
Hi, I'm Viva. I'm from Minnesota. I'm 21 years old and I just graduated from college this past year, and I'm working as the company manager for the Great River Shakespeare Festival in Winona. I use she, her pronouns. I was raised Catholic, and I'm somewhere still in the Christian realm, but not specifically affiliated with anything at the moment. And a hobby, I guess it's somewhere between a hobby and a career, is I'm a musician. I got my degree in music from my undergrad, and I still play bassoon, I play piano, and I sing.
I love it. We have two very talented musicians with us. You're both passionate about music. You both studied music, and you both like actively participate as young adults in the arts, in music. So what got you into bassoon? Because I just feel like I don't even think of bassoon when I think of instrument options. What was your gateway? Gabrielle had a gateway for her puzzling. What got you into bassoon?
Well, with most bassoonists, what you'll end up hearing from them in a different form is that we never actually chose bassoon. Someone chose bassoon for us.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the bassoon chooses you or something like that, but it was someone else. Okay.
Someone else. So, because most people you'll hear started on something else. I started on trumpet for 2 years and I was terrible. 2 years, I made no progress whatsoever. So I started looking at switching instruments, and my middle school band director one day just gave me the bassoon and was like, here, why don't you try messing around with this for a while? And after a couple weeks, she was like, why don't you try playing it in band? And that's how that happened.
Oh, have you gone back to this middle school teacher to be like, thank you?
Yeah, she is still one of my biggest role models and a really close friend of mine.
Oh, I love that. I love whenever someone still has a connection to a former educator, especially from middle school years. Those can be tough years. So that's awesome that she was such a standout figure. Okay, so yeah, your career and what you studied hinged on that moment of her saying, give this a shot. I really like that. Well, let's transition to hearing directly about the sacred. But I love both of your intros and who you've set yourself up to be. You both mentioned you have a background in Catholicism. Maybe you both define yourselves a little bit differently at this point in life when it comes to spirituality or when it comes to Christianity. But when you hear the word sacred, I imagine you heard it growing up even. At this point in life, what are the first things that come to mind for you when you hear the phrase sacred or sacred experiences?
For me, the first thing I tend to think of when I hear sacred is community of some sort. I know the place where I tend to feel what I consider to be sacred, meaningful, that kind of stuff is when I'm in groups or with other people. So it's all about the relationships and community for me.
That's great. Thanks, Viva. What would you say, Gabrielle?
I think on a personal level, for me, it'll always have the religious connotation. More often, I've begun thinking of sacred as transcendental, accessing higher meaning, interconnectedness, community, like Viva was saying. I also kind of think of sacred as untouchable, not in the sense of like it's cold or standoffish, but rather that it's something important that you kind of hold close to you. It's something that you remember. And it's something that has deep meaning to you, and usually because you experience it in community or communion with another individual, a group of people, or in a place that means a lot to you. So I think like transcendental.
Wonderful. Okay, that's really helpful to set the stage here. What kinds of things or people or places are sacred to each of you?
For me, I think my family is going to always be the most sacred thing to me. I know. I mean, anytime we're together, when we're at a larger family reunion, when we're all just, sitting in the living room, being in each other's company. I think my family's going to be the first place that I think of as sacred because of that kind of communion and relationship that we have with each other. Other places, for me, especially as a musician, I find that music ensembles that I play in are always going to be very sacred to me. There's something very special and very goes beyond traditional and like everyday relationships, is the ability to be in the same space and create music with these people that you may or may not know very well, and have that same kind of experience and same desire to create music with each other.
Beautiful. Does that resonate with you, Gabrielle? Is music something, or music ensembles, or is that something you would have identified?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it goes hand in hand with my religious experience being intrinsically tied to singing, as a cantor, as a music minister, where music is the way that I pray and the way that I help facilitate other people's prayers. So music, and specifically in the context of Mass, of liturgy and ritual. I also resonate with what Viva's saying about family. I'm an only child, but I have a big extended family. So what I was kind of saying about sacred being untouchable, but again, in a more positive light, the dynamic and relationship I have with my parents, to me, is sacred. And it's something that, by nature of it just being the three of us, it's something that doesn't exist or always translate. Like, it's something that you can't replicate from the outside. It's something that, like, the three of us understand together, because that's our dynamic. That's how it's always been. So that time together, especially now that I live away from home, is really sacred to me.
Oh, that's beautiful. I hope my kid, when he's grown, will be able to say something about that family dynamic being sacred. That's really beautiful. What has led you both to have this sort of ease with the word sacred? Like, it seems like it's easy for you to define or point to different elements in your lives where it shows up. Are there identities you hold, or beliefs or practices that you feel like this has really shaped my view of the sacred? Anything from your background?
Well, ironically, I think one of the biggest things that has formed my view of sacred was my Catholic upbringing. As I mentioned, I don't really consider myself Catholic anymore. And so I don't attend church regularly anymore. But that idea of having this community with other people united together to, participate in this liturgy that transcends the physical world, I think that was a big part of what has changed the way I think about sacred, and really affected the way I look at and interact with groups and different communities of which I am a part of. So that basis in a community and this being united in love and things that go beyond what you tend to think of and interact with on a daily basis has been a large part of it for me.
That's really cool to hear that even if you don't feel like this is part of your regular life now, you're still able to see the ways it's formed you and shaped you. Like, in a positive light, even. I'm hearing, a positive description, just because sometimes I think people assume, if someone's not in a regular religious service, then they must dislike this, or they must have a negative view, or, want to throw it all out. And I feel like you're able to still find really important aspects that have defined who you are, like how you've referenced the significance of communal spaces. That's come up multiple times from you. So it sounds like religious spaces holding a sense of community was really formational.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Gabrielle? What identities, beliefs, practices, those sort of things have shaped your sense of the sacred?
I've been lucky to speak about this in different capacities, like through Springtide, thanks to its opportunities, which is that my cultural background, being Filipino, is tied to my faith identity as a Catholic. And that goes for a huge chunk of the Filipino population, at least in our cultural history, in that even if on an individual level, someone who's Filipino might not identify as Catholic or attend Mass regularly, like it's very likely they were baptized or were married in the Catholic Church, or like grew up having Catholic Mass as a touchstone. So I think that infusion of faith into my ethnic identity made me see the everyday, even outside of religious practice, as kind of a mediator for the sacred and everyday things, habits, interactions, places as carriers of the sacred. Because the whole, like Viva was saying, the whole idea of liturgy, of Mass, is that there are everyday things and people and practices that are supposed to have an elevated meaning, and they're supposed to carry they're symbols of something greater. So I think the intertwined nature of ethnicity and cultural heritage and religious practice makes me believe that sacred isn't a term that's confined to one religious institution or faith tradition.
That's really cool that like you're able to point to multiple aspects and the way they're intertwined. But religion being one of those aspects alongside cultural identity that is broadening your sense of the sacred. I think sometimes people think, oh, religion will confine things. And you're like, no, it's helped me see sacred being everyday moments, everyday places, having that potential, instead of it only being in a service or only being in a quote unquote religious space. So yeah, clearly your background in both of your backgrounds in faith spaces has, I think, broadened your sense of the sacred, which I think faith leaders listening to this episode might be encouraged to hear that was a takeaway, that it gave you a sacred sensibility. That's one of the terms that comes up in the report. I would love now to hear a specific story, something that stands out to each of you of a particular sacred experience that you would be willing to share. Give us all the details, the full context of where you were, who you were with, and I'll jump in if I want to hear more. But let's have you go first, Gabrielle.
So let's see, in July 2021, my university, Loyola Marymount University, had an in-person commencement weekend for the classes of 2020 and 2021. Marta, I know I've shared the story in a staff meeting before. I don't think Viva's heard it, so I apologize for the repetition.
Oh, I'm excited to hear it again. And I think it's important for people to hear this story because COVID threw off so much. So when you say the class of 2020 and 2021 were combined, that's not normal already. Like,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like they would have been whole separate ceremonies a year apart.
Mm-hmm. And it was even bigger than undergrad classes of 20 and 21, because it was undergrad, master's, doctoral.
Oh, wow.
So it was twice the size that it would have been, and it was all in one ceremony. And usually they're also split up. One of the components of LMU's commencement week or weekend is a commencement mass. We always bookend the school year with two masses: the welcome mass, mainly for incoming students, and then commencement mass for graduating students. And obviously that didn't happen for 2 years. When this kind of revamped combined commencement came back around in 2021, the university was very cognizant of not overcrowding, kind of utilizing outdoor space creatively so that people weren't packed into an indoor space. So actually, we split commencement mass into 3 separate masses, like afternoon, late afternoon, evening. And we did it on what we call the bluff. LMU is situated on a hill that overlooks Los Angeles. So we did it outdoors in the garden next to the chapel, which we hadn't done before. It usually took place in our gym. So I was cantor for 2 of the 3 of those masses, and then I was a choir member for another one. But the mass I'm talking about, I was a cantor for, and it happened during sunset. So that's one of that natural component is one of the things that makes this so memorable for me. So we had, I don't know how many people were there. I would probably guess 500. 500 is probably about like 500 per mass. We had an orchestra, a choir, and then we had student ministers on the liturgy side. And then commencement mass always has parents, students, extended family, friends, guests, former students, current students. So I remember so vividly standing on the cantor platform. I had the music stand in front of me and the music stand light for when it got dark, and just seeing so many familiar and unfamiliar faces, and seeing for the first time a space that was filled with people after so long, after the back half of my undergrad being online, after being on campus when it was absolutely deserted, and being in that space for the first time to celebrate a milestone, and a milestone that I was sharing with friends, with acquaintances, and with strangers. That was something that was it was such a tangible feeling that I feel like I can carry it or hold it, you know? For me, I had my parents there, as well as actually some relatives from Guam who I hadn't seen for about 10 to 15 years prior. And part of that was COVID, like some traveling and travel freezes and things like that. So I had a couple relatives there from Guam, a couple cousins who had actually moved from California to Oregon over the pandemic. So the experience of having my family centralized in one place, and we ourselves had been kind of scattered for years and years, and the ability to be in front of my family and sing and lead liturgy and do that for them, as well as for so many friends and their families who were also experiencing that same feeling of, you know, being settled and being back in this common place that we all chose together, we all fell in love with together. Like I said, it's such a visceral feeling, like looking out and seeing all the seeds being filled and seeing people singing together. There are songs that are kind of just in the language of LMU, songs that people have memorized, especially if they have family members who were alumni of the university, or they just like live in proximity and they've come to LMU over the years. Like those songs that people have memorized, and seeing this common language, because that's what music is. It's a transcendental language. So the ability to facilitate that, kind of shepherd that, and be present for people in that way was so special. And like I'll never forget that, the view that I had from the music stand.
Wow. This was even better the second time hearing the story. And
I've been nested.
It's been several months since I heard it the first time, but I feel like I'm on the bluff with you at sunset. Mm-hmm. You really know how to paint a picture, Gabrielle. I mean, that day held so much for you, so much for your class, so much for the other class of graduates. And then it's this, like, you're recognizing your community, your people, everything that COVID has disrupted, that this is like a new coming together. You're in nature when that's not typical for this service. And then your family's having this reunion moment. I don't even remember that aspect. There's just multiple levels of community and connection all in this same place, nature, sunset, and you're facilitating what I bet others are saying that was such a significant moment for me, or that capstone really marks, my educational experience in a profound way, especially coming out of a pandemic. So, I know it is not lost on you, the gift that facilitating that type of experience is to offer, the gift to offer and the gift to receive. Like, clearly it's why it stands out for you as such a sacred experience. I hope that, some of your classmates or professors or other significant people can listen back to this podcast episode and be transported similarly back to that day. Even the fact that you had 3 masses to lead, or 2 that you're, leading as a cantor, and still the 3rd you're singing in the choir, that's just a lot of work, to where you could be exhausted by the sunset service. But it sounds like you just had, a keen awareness of how significant that moment was for you and for everyone around you. We're excited to have you share, Viva. We have, 2 musicians in the space, so I'm anticipating your story might connect to music in some way, but no pressure if it doesn't. But I'd love to hear whatever sacred experience you want to share.
Mine is absolutely about music.
Okay, I had a feeling.
Yeah. So this experience, this was actually just recently, back in February, I think it was, of this year. When I was at Concordia College, my undergrad, I played in, among other ensembles, I played in the Concordia Band, which was our larger band at the school. And I think it was actually February. Every February, we go on a domestic tour around some part of the U.S. Normally, it's like the Dakotas or Minnesota, Wisconsin. So we were doing that in February, and we've been working on these pieces for 3 months at this point, usually. And there's this one piece that our band director chose for us called Lux Perpetua by Frank Ticheli. It's a beautiful symphonic band work that was written after 2 students at Baylor University who were in the band lost their life in a car accident. So light, perpetual light, it's this like memoriam for them. And it's based off of the different kinds of lights that these 2 students brought into the world. So it has this one like beautiful flowing reflective part, and that transitions into a more bubbly light, like bright section. And then the piece ends by combining the 2, so that these 2 various depictions of light and then bringing them together at the end. So because of the, commemorative nature of the piece for these students, I decided every night that we would play it on tour, I was going to play it for a specific person in my life that had died or had faced some kind of tragedy. So this was a piece that I know the first time the band played it, we all were just in love with it. So every time we practiced it, you could feel everyone's heart going into it, because it was just so special for us. And this was a community that I felt very close to. So the very first time we played it for an audience was a very sacred moment for me. There was so much power behind it. And we played it in a way that we hadn't played it in rehearsals before, in the way that, performances bring out that kind of nature. So that power and intensity and emotion that was put into that piece for that first time, and then seeing that emotion given back to us by the audience, was very special. And I know the first time that I played it, the person I played it for was one of my neighbors from back home in Winona, who had just a couple weeks earlier died very suddenly. He was a dad. He had 2 girls who were my age, who lost their father. So near the end of the piece, I started crying because I was just thinking about that. And I know looking around, there were other band members who had similar emotion. You could see a few audience members having the same kind of reaction. It was a very powerful experience for me, knowing that I was thinking about something, they were thinking about something different, and yet we were still here connected in the same kind of emotion, experiencing the same thing from our various backgrounds, various places that we are in our life, but we were all connected through this very powerful experience that, transcends words, transcends our physical existence.
Oh my goodness. Someone's a musician when they're able to give you that depth of context into the piece. Did the audience get a briefer in any way, like in the program or verbally, to know what made that piece what it is, in terms of that it was created in memoriam or anything like that?
Yes, there were program notes that give a more detailed background, but our band director spoke. That piece was actually one that went from a different piece right into that piece. So the two pieces before, he talked about the piece that was immediately coming, which was a depiction of war and violence. And then it moved into this story of new light and all that. So he did, combining those two also helped give it a new layer of depth to it as well.
Yeah, no kidding. Just the transition alone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow. The fact that you also go into each concert with such intentionality of like, this is, you don't take it lightly, that this is weighty, what you're doing, and that you want to attach a memory or play in honor of someone who's passed or faced a significant tragedy, like you said. I think that's really beautiful way to approach your art. I wonder if the family friend that you're discussing, the neighbor who tragically passed, if there's a way to even, pass it, maybe you already have, but pass along that intention was held. In our research, we heard a lot in the interviews we did, as well as the quantitative data collected for the State of Religion and Young People 2023. We heard that grief was often the place that people would name a sacred experience. It also sometimes was like a place of, deep joy, but it was that a significant emotional state was the threshold for a sacred moment or a sacred experience. And so even if, the music isn't necessarily a place of grief, the fact that, as Gabrielle said, actually, that music is this transcendental language that it can speak to emotions, it can speak to memories, it can speak to pain, as well as, like you said, the music transitions in that piece to have this more light. I'm trying to remember the exact words you used, but it sounded like it was more joyful or exuberant than
bubbly.
Bubbly. That was it. Thank you, Gabrielle. Bubbly. Yeah, that it has these different transitions. I think is really cool to hear too, because it's showing that while there's a place of significant mourning and remembering in a way that has a different mood and tone, I imagine, in the music, there's also something of recalling the specific light or the specific energy of those two particular Baylor students who passed. I think what a cool way for their memory to live on and to, invoke other memories and other ways of honoring those who have passed. I just love the ways that, you both see the world as musicians, that both of your stories, music was facilitating a really particular experience for other people, and you were holding that experience. So it feels also like it has this big interconnectedness aspect. And you've both seen this definition in our Springtide ambassadors meetings, but the working definition we've been using in our research and reporting for exploring the sacred is defining the sacred as an experience of awe, wonder, deep truth, joy, gratitude, interconnectedness, all of those things. Sometimes it's a combination of them. And I hear multiple elements, but definitely the interconnectedness piece. I feel like that comes out so much in the ways that you were facilitating a musical experience for others around you and connecting to other people beyond the space, in the space, connecting deeply with yourself. For Gabrielle, connecting, I imagine, to the divine, because the songs are specifically worshipful, that you were leading. I think there's layers of connection happening here, but they're really just poignant examples that you both have brought. I'm wondering if you had more of these experiences, because both of yours are such specific moments, but you've both described how you can see the sacred in everyday experiences as well. So I'm wondering if you had more sacred moments in your life, if you were attuned more and more to notice them or have them, how would that impact your life?
I like that you use the word attuned, Marta, because I'm thinking the problem isn't that I think I have a shortage or lack of sacred experiences. It's that I have a shortage of perception, or that I'm not attuned, or I'm not always aware or at my most open. So I think the difference is me and my level of perception. So that being said, I think it would make all the difference. I think one thing that's gotten me to be more intentional and more optimistic about life, about people, is the mindset, and this is aided by my faith, but kind of the mindset that things aren't always or even usually accidental or coincidental, and just this kind of belief that certain things are meant to be, or that, you know, the cliches, when one door closes another door opens and things like that. And then that's not to say that every bad or even good thing that happens is divinely willed or divinely intended, but just the belief that there's intentionality behind things. And that kind of posture has helped me approach even just everyday or mundane experiences with kind of a more open heart, I think.
Yeah. Noticing things, paying attention, having that posture, like you said, and an open heart to receive and notice is a beautiful way to go about life.
Yeah.
What would you say, Viva? Is there something that you feel like, oh, if I had more sacred experiences, or if I was attuned to them, as we said before, in ways that I'm not always, maybe, how it would impact your life?
I tend to agree very much with what Gabrielle said. I think for me, with that story in particular, after tour was over, I much more appreciated my rehearsals and opportunities to make music with the people around me. I know I approached my rehearsals with a lot more reverence than I did, just because it was a reminder of just how special all of these moments are. So in a way that then, as Gabrielle mentioned, makes me more attuned to these moments that I do perceive as sacred, much more aware of the little moments around me that are not something that I should be taking for granted, and that have a much deeper meaning for me and for those around me. So just, I really like what Gabrielle said about the open heart. It really just, having more of these experiences in a way makes you have more of these experiences.
Yeah. Well said. So, I mean, that's really cool to hear that you had reverence for the rehearsals even. that it wasn't just like, go through the motions, make sure we remember this crescendo or whatever, whatever, that you could just like get technical about it, which maybe that's fine for other types of rehearsals. But this, it sounds like you were approaching, because of the significance and the weight of this piece, that it wasn't just in the concerts that you were approaching it in that way, that even the rehearsals, you were giving extra appreciation, extra consideration to the power of the piece and all that was connecting to it. I'm wondering if there's anything that you're like, I really wanted to get this into the conversation, or for anyone who's listening and is wanting to help the young people in their own spheres notice and experience the sacred. Anything that, you wanted to get in or encourage others about, we'd love to hear your last thoughts.
There's this quote that I was reminded of when I was prepping for this recording that I haven't thought of since junior high or high school. It's from Jamie Torkowski, who I think is a mental health advocate, activist, and nonprofit founder. And I found the quote early in high school. I'll just read it real quick.
I'd love to hear it.
You'll need coffee shops and sunsets and road trips, airplanes and passports, and new songs and old songs. But people more than anything else. You will need other people, and you will need to be that other person to someone else. A living, breathing, screaming invitation to believe better things.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I love it so much.
Gorgeous.
I know. I love it so much. I'm so glad I thought of it, because it captures those, again, quote unquote, mundanities, but that they have the capacity for sacred. So I think I'm so glad Springtide defines sacred in the way it is, as awe, deep truth, wonder, because it reminds us and kind of unlocks this meaning that sacred is anywhere and everywhere if you choose to label it as such, and no experience or place or person needs to be excluded from that definition if that's how you feel about that experience.
No, I like that other aspect of inclusivity that you're acknowledging there. And I think the whole quote is beautiful. I'm really glad you shared it, but I think there's something extra powerful in that. It's like, how will you be this for someone else? I know I'm paraphrasing, but that's what we're trying to do with our research, really, is allow different trusted adults, whether they're in a spiritual setting or a secular setting, so to speak, wherever they're at in the world, that they can be empowering and equipping the young people in their lives to notice things differently, to pay attention, to have an opportunity for awe, to have a place to let deep truth be encountered, or to have a space for gratitude and connection. All of these aspects in some ways can be facilitated when there's different intention. Sure, there's a lot that we hear from young people that you can't create a sacred moment. Sometimes it just happens. But I think there's different atmospheres and places and environments that adults can often help cultivate. So I got that from the quote as well. Thank you again for sharing it. Viva, what about you? Is there any final thought you have? We'd love to hear it.
I think a large part, or maybe not a large part, but part of experiencing sacred moments is that you need the space afterwards to kind of process it and talk about it. And I think in helping young people to recognize these sacred experiences, a large part of it is going to be giving them the space and the language to process it however they need and talk through it, especially with, trusted adults or whoever they may be around, because it's important to be able to verbally identify what the experience was and how it was sacred in that way. And then makes you, as we mentioned earlier, more attuned to these kind of experiences as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because I I've heard from other conversations in this podcast season, as well as just other times that I've been talking about the sacred extra in 2023 with young people, that it's not often in the moment that people realize this is sacred. Sometimes it comes months later when people look back at something, or through just processing the events and what it held or what it meant for them or what they realized in that season or that moment, that then there's like, this looking back that you're like, that was really significant. That was really sacred to me. If that language fits, sometimes it takes other trusted guides to help process or give language to something, to give a container to consider what the impact of that event was. And sometimes it's through hard circumstances. And so in the middle of hard circumstances, not everyone's going, this is sacred. That sometimes you're like, this is awful. But it's the perspective shift that's not always in the moment. So I love that you, just encourage people to create those spaces for reflection. I so enjoyed this conversation with both of you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing these vignettes. I felt like I was in both of these music spaces with each of you in my mind. You really took us on the journey in wonderful ways. I have loved this season, no matter what order you listen to the episodes. This is our final and sixth episode, like I said at the beginning, but you can go back and listen to any of these episodes, share them with a family member, share them with a friend, share them with a trusted adult, a colleague, a mentor, whomever, who you think, hey, they've helped me to see the sacred, or hey, this would be a great resource for someone to consider the sacred in fresh ways or with the young people they serve. Thanks again to Viva and Gabrielle. I'm Marte Aboagye, and we'll have more episodes coming to you in 2024. Take care. Visit springtideresearch.org to hear more voices of young people and to learn about the latest research and resources available, along with the State of Religion and Young People 2023, Exploring the Sacred. Springtide Research Institute is dedicated to listening to young people and sharing critical research and actionable insights from what we learn. Visit our website to find ways to support our work and discover ways that we can support yours. Be sure to follow us on social media at WeAreSpringtide and join the conversation by using the hashtag #ExploringTheSacred. Today's show was produced by Marte Aboagye. The audio was mixed by Andy Palmer, with original music created by student Christian Unthink. Special thanks to the 12 guests featured in Season 8 and to all the young people whose perspectives and insights make our research possible. Thanks for listening.